Really good, very informative, very inclusive, and I love the live experiences that almost every speaker had.
Definitely recommend. I'd happily come to another one myself.
The fact that we've been able to network today has been amazing. There's been lots of opportunities to do that. Range of speakers was amazing. You're learning from experience rather than from assumptions, which is always brilliant.
Many people don't really know the best way to support us. And if we can raise that awareness through events like this, that's marvellous.
We've had a great time today and it's been really, really insightful. We've took a lot from it.
Hi everyone. Everyone's just joining, so welcome to skill sessions. We're just going to allow everyone to join. So welcome. Thank you for everybody being so prompt. That's fantastic. So yeah, welcome to skill sessions online. For those of you who aren't aware, skill sessions is a series of events online and in person, hosted by CareScribe. The whole idea is these events are designed to share knowledge about areas of neurodiversity and disability to help build and foster an inclusive community where we can discuss these sorts of topics. So yeah, each event is based on a different topic, this event follows on nicely from our last one, which was on neurodiversity. This time we're talking about dyslexia. We've got the fantastic Natalie Brooks, founder of Dyslexia in Adults, speaking on the topic of creating workspaces that are dyslexic, where dyslexic thinking thrives. Lovely to see so many of you joining. As you join, please get into the chat, say where you're joining from, say hello, make sure your chat settings are set to all, otherwise you won't be saying hello to everybody, you'll just be saying it to a couple of us. So make sure you've changed your chat settings so everyone can see who you are, where you come from, and keep the chat going, because if you've been on these events previously, normally there's lots of people joining, lots of people chatting, sharing experiences, and that's what this is all about. Fantastic. So yeah, lots and lots of people joining. This is brilliant. So let us know where you're joining from, and as I say, just pop things into the chat there. Bro. Okie doke. Before we get over to Natalie, I'm going to tell you a little bit about who I am, who we are, and yeah, a little bit more about CareScribe. So my name's Rich. I'm one of the founders and directors of CareScribe. CareScribe's an assistive technology company based out of Bristol. So shout out to anybody else based in Bristol. Myself and the other two founders, Chris and Tom, we're all neurodivergent, as are many of our team. The company, as a company, we spend every single day working to support people who are disabled or neurodivergent to work and study more independently. That's our kind of mission. And we do that by building technology, so by building assistive technology. We have a couple of software tools that we've built, which you may well have heard of. The first one's called Captioned. So Captioned is a captioning and note-taking tool designed to help people to better comprehend and retain the huge amounts of information that are thrown at us every day in our busy lives, whether that's in the workplace or if you're studying. This is, of course, of tremendous value to those with a wide range of disabilities and neurodivergent profiles, from perhaps those who are deaf or have hearing loss, who may have difficulty comprehending what's being said, to those who are like me and dyslexic or have ADHD or ASD, who maybe have similar difficulties or find it hard to focus and retain information as it's being said. Or even those with maybe a motor impairment who find it difficult to get thoughts down quickly on pen or paper or on a computer. So that's Captioned and how Captioned can help support individuals. And then, of course, our other piece of software is called TalkType, which, again, you may well have heard of. And that's a dictation software. So that is designed to help people convert thoughts to text, something that a wide range of people find very challenging for a wide range of reasons. Of course, if you want to find any more information out about our assistive technology and how we can support either yourself or people you work with or know, please pop a message in the chat or a message in our feedback at the end of the session, or even just get in touch through our website, and we can set up a demo and a conversation with you. Brilliant. So, quick bit of housekeeping. I can see that people have already turned on the closed captions, but you can turn on closed captions if you need to, and you can do that within Zoom. So feel free to click the button and turn those on. As I said, use the chat and tell us where you're tuning in from, and if you've got any questions or anything like that that you want to pose to us, then please pop them ideally in the Q&A section, which is slightly separate to the chat, yeah, pop them in the Q&A section and we'll pick them up. You can also upvote other people's questions. So if whilst we're talking somebody has a great question and you think, oh, I want that answered, then upvote it. There's no wrong questions. This is a safe place to learn, so please feel free to get your questions over to us. You'll be glad to know this session is recorded, so if you miss anything, don't worry. Lucy is going to send over a link to you after this, and it'll also be up on our CareScribe LinkedIn tomorrow. Final thing just to mention, and I'll mention it again at the end, is we keep running these skill sessions on lots of different topics, and we're actually going to be doing an in-person session in November in London, which is all about ADHD awareness. So if that's something that's of interest to you, and we'll be getting the registration details out relatively soon, and that's on the 7th of November. So invites coming soon, but just to make you aware, this online session is going to be we're going to be doing another in-person event, this time in the south. Our last one was up in Manchester. Okie doke. So without further ado then, let's hand over to Natalie, who is going to give us a talk all about dyslexia. So over to you, Natalie. Take it away.
Hello. Yeah. Hi. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm super excited about today's session. So let me get up my presentation and we will dive straight in. Can I just check from everyone that you can all hear me okay? Everything's all good. Just, Rich, can you hear me okay? Just making sure everything is all good. I can hear you. Okay.
Everything.
Wonderful. Good. Great. Okay. So I am Natalie, and I'm going to be discussing how to create a workplace environment where dyslexic skills and minds can thrive. So what we're going to be discussing today is understanding the reality of dyslexia and what exactly that looks like, but also suggestions on how to navigate dyslexia in the workplace and some ways to think about how to better understand dyslexic strengths. Now, the pitch of today is going to be a little bit, if you're a manager or if you're someone who is not dyslexic yourself and you want to better understand things, but my true passion really lies in helping dyslexic people understand themselves better and understand what they need better, and to be able to feel comfortable to advocate for yourself, discuss things for yourself, bring forward exactly what your strengths are and what kind of things you need to really create success. So I'm going to be trying to straddle the divide on that one. So both talking directly to you if you're dyslexic and you're in the workplace and you want to understand how to create success for yourself, but also to try and help anyone who's in the audience trying to create wider change in their organization or just for their team. So that's the kind of overview today. You'll quickly realize that the main theme is about how to understand the reality of being different and how to kind of put that in place in a broad theme. So yeah, let's dive in anyway. So just a little bit about me before we jump in. I'm Natalie. I'm the founder of Dyslexia in Adults. I founded Dyslexia in Adults in the back end of 2019. So terrifyingly coming up to kind of 4 years of working on this problem. The honest answer is that Dyslexia in Adults started for me. It was something that I was really passionate about. I had known I was dyslexic since I was 7. I was really lucky that I had great parents who were really supportive and sent me to schools that really helped me understand what I needed to do to educate myself. But when it came to the workplace, I just felt scared, lost, confused, frustrated, just unsure how to reach this potential I was kind of sure I had, sometimes felt like I didn't have, and just really feel like I understood myself. That was really the goal that I was trying to achieve. I just felt like there was so little out there for adults And a lot of the content that was out there, I just didn't feel I resonated with. So that's why a lot of the things that I talk about today, hopefully you might feel is presenting things in a different way, or discussing something that you maybe haven't heard said before, because that is something I'm really passionate about, trying to find a way to speak to 2019 Natalie and maybe the people who feel like her too. So the advice that you're going to hear today and the experiences I'm going to share they started off a lot from my own experience and my own challenges and ways of navigating the workplace. I used to do sales and account management across a number of large companies. But more and more, as I've got deeper and deeper into this business, what you'll hear is a lot of experiences from my clients. And one of the decisions I made early on in the business is to go down the social media route. So I'm really lucky that I now have a kind of global connection of about 100,000 dyslexic adults. And through feedback of comments, meetings, events, videos that have blown up, ones that haven't, that I really feel like I'm very clear on the themes and challenges and experiences that dyslexic adults face in our modern workplace. So that's kind of a little about me, a little about my credentials, and now we are actually getting into the main chunk of the presentation. So obviously I put this presentation together in mind with the fact that we have Dyslexia Awareness Month knocking around the corner. It's Dyslexia Awareness Week and Dyslexia Awareness Month in October, so loads of opportunities to really talk about awareness and helping people better understand dyslexia. Now, like I said, discussing dyslexia differently and thinking about things in a different way is something I'm really passionate about. The way that I feel that often if you kind of have a kind of consciousness of dyslexia, you kind of, you know it, but you don't really know anything about it. If you picture dyslexia, you're probably picturing a child who is stuttering with reading or struggling with learning to spell. And although that is the experience of many dyslexic people, it's quite a narrow lens to look through dyslexia. There are so many challenges that dyslexic people face. And obviously, as we know well, it follows you lifelong. So when we're kind of just talking about children, that isn't the entirety of it in the experience of dyslexic people. And so to me, helping people understand the reality of dyslexia and what we're really looking at, what we're really experiencing, the good and the bad, and how it hits us is really, really important for creating change and helping people help us create success for ourselves. So a little bit of this at the beginning is going to be talking about understanding dyslexia, because in my personal opinion, if you understand your brain, then you're able to give yourself some kindness to reduce the stress and anxiety that comes from dyslexia. You're able to think of better solutions and ways of managing dyslexia. You're also able to manage dyslexia through much more control, because instead of going into a meeting, realizing that you're struggling, feeling fearful, keeping quiet, you actually go in prepared and in control and clear on what you might need. So much of managing dyslexia is about managing it in advance. And if you don't understand it, then that can be really difficult. So that's why understanding dyslexia is something that I'm really passionate about. So first slide, what is dyslexia? I think the way that I like to think about it is it's a difference in how you process information. And that difference ultimately has positives and negatives. So in terms of what we're looking at here, the way that the reason why I wanted to say that is, like I said, we're looking at this really narrow lens of how we're thinking about dyslexia. We're thinking about people struggling to read, and we're thinking about children. And when you think about the fact that it's processing information, it makes sense as to why it's so much of our lives that are impacted by dyslexia. It makes sense that it's also confidence challenges that come alongside dyslexia. It makes sense that there's also strengths that are associated with dyslexia, because if you're like, okay, you're struggling to read, but how does that have strengths? Or like, okay, you can't spell, like, how does that like have an impact on you? I don't get it. Like, you're saying you're struggling in a meeting, but I thought you couldn't spell and we have spell check. Like, what? So I think when you remember that it's a difference in how you process information, it can really help to get a sense of why it's so important to create change and what exactly the changes that we're actually looking for are. And you'll see the theme of difference flowing throughout this presentation as well. So I wanted to kind of start off by talking about some of the common dyslexic challenges that both dyslexic people themselves don't understand and so many people in the workplace also aren't really aware of. And then we'll kind of go into what that looks like and what that feels like. So the first one is verbal instructions. I think this is a perfect example of how dyslexia is so much more than the reading and spelling, and it has such a wide impact. So this is connected to something called working memory, which some of you may have heard of and some of you haven't, but it's basically the section in your brain that deals with things coming in. And when information comes in, your brain is scrambling to figure out what to do with it. It's like, do I store it? Do I answer a question on it? What do I do? And dyslexic people just have a slightly smaller capacity in that section. And so when your boss shouts over over the desk and says, oh, Natalie, could you send a presentation to Lucy? I need you to also send it to Mike, and I need it to be sent on the 13th. And what's really important is that you include X, Y, and Z information. You're sitting there thinking, uh-oh, I remember presentation and it's got to go to Lucy and someone else. And there was a date that I said, and there was some information I needed to send. And I think I have it all, but I'm not sure. And the natural reaction, because you're like, well, the last thing I want them to think is I'm careless, is you just go, okay, I'll just try and remember everything. Okay, I'll just sit quietly and just like hope that I remember everything. I don't want to like highlight that I can't remember everything. Like it was only 3 pieces of information. Like, oh no. Or maybe you ask for it again. Maybe you kind of pull up the courage and you say like, oh, sorry, could you just repeat that? But you don't have a pen and paper in your hand. You didn't ask for it to be emailed. Then you're going to bed at night thinking, oh my God, I hope I remembered everything that has to go in that presentation. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I'm sure it was correct. Maybe I missed something. You get the gist. The other one is language difficulties. Obviously, we talked about the fact that dyslexia is related to spelling, and I think most people know that. But so common is the experience of dyslexic people being told, oh, but we have spell check, it's fine. And I think it's about understanding that it's so much more than that. It's so much more complicated than that. It's so much more frustrating than that. I can't tell you how many of my clients have said to me over the years, if spelling was the problem with dyslexia, if that was it, if this was all I was dealing with, fine, great, I've got it, like, it's okay, I can deal with it. But it's the ability to check your own work and notice your own mistakes, despite the fact you've checked it 10, 15, 20 times. And one of the things that haunts me still to this day, as someone who is trying to help dyslexic people, is the challenge of homophones. And so that is words that look like other words or are very similar. So we're thinking dairy and diary, angel and angle. The one that personally was my nemesis is, like I said, I was an account manager for about 10 years. I used to write, I was an account manger a lot. And I can't tell you how many times I got picked up on that. And I was like, yeah, it's just spelled it, doesn't pick it up. And then the other thing I wanted to kind of touch on is with regards to reading. Obviously, again, reading is a really common dyslexic challenge that we may know about. But I think one of the things that's better to understand with dyslexia is it's not just the challenge of reading, it's the time that it takes to read the information and the knock-on effect that that has, or the fact that this is not our natural skill or strength. And so if we're having to process a lot of information, it can be hugely draining, hugely frustrating, and can result in like feeling absolutely exhausted after doing one of these tasks that really just don't feel like where you're supposed to be or like how your brain is supposed to work. Just feels like, often what my clients say is, it feels like it's pushing a boulder uphill, and it's so frustrating. So we talked a little bit about the challenges and like what they may look like and examples of them, but what is the reality of the dyslexic experiences behind that? And it will make sense shortly as to why I'm touching on this and why I think this is so important. because this is what I'm seeing all day, every day. So this may be you, like I said, if you're a person who's struggling with your own dyslexia or trying to create success with your dyslexia, or this could be your team, this could be a large swathes of your employees if you're in kind of in a managerial position. The reality is so many dyslexic people fear being outside of their comfort zone. And that might mean pushing back on a promotion. It might mean not speaking up in a meeting if they've got an idea or a thought or something that they think they want to say, but there's this voice in their head that says, no, like I'm definitely wrong. I can't be right. Oh, I don't want to say anything. What if I say it wrong? And you lose that idea, you lose that thought, you lose that experience of that person because they just are too afraid to speak up. Or maybe there's a project they would be amazing at running, but because they've never done it before and the fear of putting themselves in the spotlight means that they're not going to take it on, they're going to just sit quietly, or the fear that maybe it will take on too much time and they won't be quick enough. And so the natural desire is to just stay in the background, stay quiet, try and stay in their comfort zone. That means that we miss out on ideas. It means we miss out on experience. It means that we miss out on the opportunity to progress ourselves. And I can't tell you how common this is. I have a client at the moment who I'm in a full-on battle with. He's determined to request a demotion, and I'm determined that he shall not request a demotion because every single day he's living in fear of this particular meeting he has to go to every week. And because of that, he wants to ask for a demotion. Like, this is the extent to which it impacts and permeates our careers. The other one is I can't tell you how common it is. Again, if you're a dyslexic person yourself, you will know this. The making jokes about yourself, the putting yourself out there first, the being like, oh, sorry, I've got a brain like a sieve, or like, I may not be a natural blonde, but I sure well should be. Or I couldn't organize a press up in a brewery, you know, whatever it is. It's so common for dyslexic people to put themselves down. And that means that our colleagues don't believe in us. That means that people think we're not capable. They don't listen to our ideas. Or maybe it's just, if we constantly are putting ourselves down, then that's a statement on how we're feeling about ourselves. And it results in kind of further pushing yourself down and almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. You think you're useless. And so therefore it results in it being the case. Or maybe you don't ask for help, or you feel uncomfortable of putting yourself in a position where maybe you're talking about the fact that you're struggling, and it's just easier to make little jokes about yourself. I see it time after time after time, and it's something that I am constantly advising my clients against. Like I said, these stories are going to come from a little bit from me and a little bit from my clients. I actually, to really hammer home this point, when I was younger and I was working in this big tech company that I guarantee you've all heard of, I started at the same time as this girl, and I subsequently found out she was being paid 10 grand more than me. And I was a little disappointed, and I found out that it was because I kind of lowballed myself in the interview stage. I'd kind of like said that I wasn't really that competent, and you know, they weren't really sure whether or not they wanted to hire me, and so they hired me at a much lower salary, which obviously sucks. But then it gets worse. So then I'm on the cusp of a promotion, and they tell me that I have to take on this new account to be able to show that I'm capable of this new amount of money, which is fine. And I'm taking over this account and it's going well. And my colleague says to me, you know, Natalie, you're actually really good at your job. And I was like, yeah. I thought that was a given. And she was like, no, but you constantly talk about how you're not good enough. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, but they're just jokes. She was like, well, why would I know otherwise? If you think you're bad, then why would I take the time to realize that you weren't? And she actually told me that when this account was being taken off her and given to me, she had protested and said that I wasn't good enough or wasn't capable. And that was partly because of the way that I used to speak about myself. So these are the realities of like how feeling different and feeling uncomfortable and feeling frustrated in the workplace can result and have a huge impact on both how your employees are able to show up for you or how you're able to show up for yourself in your career. You would think I would have heeded her advice. So she said to me, like, you got to stop with this. Like, seriously, this is not fair. And you think I would have heeded her advice. Oh, no. I went on to another company, another tech company that I guarantee you have heard of. And you had to do a peer 360 feedback. And in the 360, I had 17 people, I still remember counting it to the day, say, Natalie should speak more kindly about herself. Natalie is awfully harsh on herself. Natalie really puts herself down. And reading it over and over again, I was like, oh, it's so deep, the feeling sometimes, that you don't realize how it's coming out and how it's showing itself. And then the final one that I see over and over again is dyslexic people being too fearful to ask for help, or too nervous to suggest anything that might make their load easier because they're worried about how it will be perceived, or how it will go down, or what kind of things people will think of them. And so usually we struggle in silence. We just take on the extra work quietly and happily, or maybe we refuse to say no to tasks because we're too fearful of showing that we're slightly drowning and struggling. Or maybe you're just living every single day, coming home from work thinking, I am absolutely exhausted because of how much work and time I've put into things. So this is the reality of what we're thinking about with dyslexic challenges. Like, yeah, it's working memory. Yeah, it's challenges with spelling and reading. But in reality, it's so much deeper than that. And it's so much more than that. The other thing in terms of understanding dyslexia that I'm always really passionate about talking about is how dyslexia co-occurs and has so many different areas that it comes in with. I like to think of neurodiversity as like a mojito. Everyone's had a mojito, but everyone knows what a mojito is and kind of understands the general themes of it. But how many times have we had 3 different mojitos and they taste completely different? And that's the importance of understanding the co-occurrences that come with your neurodiversity. So getting on to supporting dyslexics, I was terrified that I was going to be running under time. I'm now running over time as per usual. So supporting dyslexic and trying to create success in the workplace. So I think I've made a pretty good job of explaining that dyslexic people feel different, and that sometimes is awkward and weird. So one of the things I wanted to talk about in terms of a broad theme, that both when you're thinking about what you're looking for from an employer and yourself as an employer, what are the things that every workplace can do, every workplace can initiate, whether or not you have a white collar job or you do something different, or maybe you're kind of like any range of employers. Then I thought I really like these 2 pillars that I think everyone can implement. And obviously we've talked about the importance of assistive technology and how it absolutely changes the game for dyslexic people. But the 2 things that I think we need on top of that often we maybe don't think about or aren't aware of is flexibility and kindness, because that can really create so much change for people. So what is flexibility and kindness? What on earth am I rabbiting on about? Well, again, we've talked about the fact that dyslexic minds think differently, and we have different challenges and different strengths. And creating flexibility in, like, does things have to be done that way? Could we look at something differently? Could we take on board this new approach? Or could we look at how we configure the team? Can be critical for creating success and to try and help people really feel comfortable and successful, and looking at the makeup of a team and tasks and processes to really think about things that could be done differently. So one of the things I've noticed about dyslexic people that are able to create success is when we create the process, when we are the one who has full control of things, when we are the one who does things from end to end, often we are so successful. So if you're thinking to yourself, or just like feeling like this isn't working, this is just feeling really like, oh, I'm frustrated, or like doesn't feel like it's clicking, ask yourself, how much autonomy do I have over that process? Did I create this process? Would it be useful if I kind of re-engineered things? Dyslexic people are amazing at simplifying things. So looking at a process and thinking, well, that's wonky. What if we did it just bam, bam, bam? And maybe it's simpler and easier. And so often I speak to dyslexic people who have like jiggled around company systems and approaches. And once people have noticed it, or maybe they're privately doing it their way, and then everyone's like, oh, well, that looks great. Like, why don't we initiate that? And you're like, oh, well, like, I just didn't want to say anything, or I just, didn't want to cause a fuss. So often changing a process or a system to find things your way can be really helpful. The other thing is flexibility on how we're explaining things or how we're approaching things. How many times have you sat in a meeting and thought to yourself, I do not understand what they're saying, and I'm going to smile and I'm going to nod and hopefully it will be fine. Often one of the things that dyslexic people say to me is they say like, I just kind of don't really understand, and I don't really understand why I don't understand. And one of the things I consistently say to people to try and help create success and to think about things differently is try and ask for the context of things. Dyslexic people love to know why. We have this brain that likes to see the top level of things, likes to see the interconnections of things. So when you're explaining something to a dyslexic person, examples of how that might be the case, or providing them context on why they're in this meeting or what is going on, ideally providing that information in advance so that they can start getting that processing speed going and starting putting the thoughts together. So explaining information in a way that is new or different, and being flexible in that ability to maybe answer some questions that don't instantly feel like they make sense, but might help click something for someone. That's a tip I give to all my clients and they really love it. So the context of things, if you're struggling, is a really big one to go for. The other thing is I'm working with someone at the moment. The reality is there's some tasks and elements of a role that is just really tricky for dyslexic people. And we'll go on to that in a little bit of what kind of tasks they may look like. And I'm working with someone at the moment who's really struggling with, she has to check this form and then she has to send it off, and she's an auditor, so this form matters. It's really important. And she's been consistently making mistakes for the last few months, and she's feeling really at the end of her tether. And we came up with a load of ways of thinking about it and loads of different things. And she was still finding it just a really anxious and stressful process, even though she wasn't making any mistakes. The mental load it was putting on her was really having an impact. And I said to her, listen, would be considered a reasonable adjustment to take away this element of your task and to maybe look at someone else doing this who wouldn't find it so stressful. We went to her employer, we explained the situation, we put it together, put her email together. Strange sentence. And they were able to look at the way that the team was structured and have flexibility on what exactly her tasks were, because her value lay elsewhere. What she was good at and what she was able to be freed up to do was so much more substantive and so much more important than making sure this form was correct. So that's some areas of what flexibility may look like. The second one is kindness. So we've talked a lot about stress and anxiety and how that's a huge blocker for dyslexic people. There's also research that cortisol, obviously the hormone related to stress and anxiety, actually impacts dyslexic challenges, particularly working memory. So not only does it feel like it makes things worse, it might actually make things worse as well. One of the things that I often say to clients when they come to me and we're trying to work out what's the best thing for them, what's going to be the most useful, is I say to them like, well, can you tell me a time when you've done a similar task and it's felt like it's gone better? And maybe we can pull some themes of what worked there across and figure it out. This is a great question to ask yourself if you're ever struggling, by the way, like, have I ever done this before and what did I do well? Because often we kind of know what we need, but we just feel unsure about whether or not it's going to work. Or if I could click my fingers and ask for anything, what would it be? That's another like nice question that always helps like get the juices flowing on what you might find useful. And the thing that my clients say to me over and over again, well, I've just recently changed bosses and like the one I had before was just really understanding and it just made me feel really comfortable and capable. And now I just feel really awkward about the fact that I'm struggling and I feel really embarrassed and it's just making it 10 times worse. So often this is where awareness comes into the picture, because the perceived feeling of dyslexic people is these challenges that we have that maybe are a little bit more unique to us. Like, oh, like it's not, we worry that people perceive us as stupid or a problem or like less than in some way. And so when you have that understanding and that kindness and that acceptance of the reality of what this difference feels like, it can go such a long way to feeling like you're able to thrive and be successful. So what is some of the value of kindness? What are some of the things we're thinking about? So one of the things that I often say to people is the concept of bearing with. So one of the things I say to dyslexic people, and we're going to talk about the strengths in a bit, is with dyslexia, we're often looking at trying to help you, just like help your team bear with you through some of these challenges, because you're going to offer something in return. So there's some things that you're going to find difficult, that's going to take you a little bit longer, that maybe you need some help with, maybe you need some flexibility on, maybe you need some kindness on, and you just need people to bear with you on that because you're going to offer something in return. And so the way to think about this kindness piece is you just really want someone to bear with you. So kindness is being okay with taking a little bit of extra time to explain something. Maybe someone else will pick it up in 15 minutes, but you're going to take 30 minutes. And that's okay, because they're going to bear with you, because it's the kindness of that little bit of flexibility. You take 30 minutes to explain something, okay, great. But in return, I don't know if there's any dyslexic people in the audience that might resonate with this. Often dyslexic people say to me, like, I just struggle to understand things. I'm so frustrated. Things take me longer. But what we often don't realize is that once things are through the door, once things make sense to us, the things we're able to do with them, the way we're able to put things in place, the changes of systems we're able to do, the problems we're able to create, the creativity we can have with those problems is so exciting. So yes, you take 15 minutes extra to explain things because you want context, because you want examples, because you've got to take screenshots, because you need to have it recorded. But you're worth bearing with, because when the information is in the door, you're going to be successful with it. Maybe it's the kindness of someone else helping to check your work. You know that 1 in 10 documents really matter and they really need to be checked. And so therefore you are going to ask maybe a junior member of your team or maybe another friend in your team who's going to check over your work. And because it's just 1 in every 10 documents, they're not going to make a fuss about it. They're not going to make you feel bad. They're going to remind you it's 1 in every 10 documents and it's really not the end of the world. And we're going to touch on this in a little bit. I'm going to explain this in a little bit more detail. But again, we've talked about difference when it comes to dyslexia. And that's what can be really frustrating. Understanding that dyslexic challenges look different. And that's okay. The list of things that you're struggling with are just the list of things that you're struggling with. Everyone is struggling with something. These just happen to be yours. I'm going to say it again loudly for the people in the back that are listening to me but ignoring this point. Everyone has challenges. These just happen to be yours. Because I don't know about you, but when I used to sit in my annual review and year after year after year after year, my bosses would say to them, and there were many. I mean, I think I had 25 bosses. Honestly, they would just rotate every 18 months. They would say to me, oh, yeah, great job, Natalie, this year. Like, really pleased with everything, blah, 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 blah. Could you just double check your work, though? Like, just do make sure you double check your work. And you're like, double check my work. Yeah. If only I'd thought of that. But the reality is that it took me so long to understand is someone else is coming into that meeting room after me and they're going to have a meeting about their annual review and they're not going to be told to double check their work, but maybe they're going to be told that it's really important that this is a kind of an area where we're moving the company forward and we're moving the team forward and they really need to contribute ideas. Or maybe they're going to be talked about their management style and the fact that they're like struggling a little bit with empathy and it's really important that they manage that process better. Everyone has challenges. These just happen to be yours. The other thing that I wanted to kind of, I really like to offer my clients and people that I'm speaking to ways of thinking about dyslexia differently. And this is one of my favorites. I used to be the type of person who I said at the beginning, who was the keeping themselves in the shadows, keeping themselves quiet, feeling concerned and nervous about putting myself out there too much because I thought the spotlight would shine on me and everyone would realize I wasn't good enough or I wasn't capable or I wasn't meant to be here. The imposter syndrome was raging. And I used to have this kind of quiet, subtle, private, you would never hear me say I can't do this, I'm dyslexic. I just would quietly feel it. I would just kind of amend myself. I would just keep my world small. So I like to say, it's not, I can't do that because I'm dyslexic. It's, I need to do that differently because I'm dyslexic. And maybe differently is accepting it might take you a little bit longer. Maybe differently is looking at the process differently or asking for a different set of roles or tasks or someone to help you with something that seems obvious and easy to other people, but isn't for you. So it's not I can't do that because I'm dyslexic. It's I need to do that differently because I'm dyslexic. Okay, this is the last piece on the kind of different approaches, and then we're going to dump into the strengths. I'm going to try and go quickly. I'm so sorry, I'm running over time. So what different might look like. Here's just a few examples that I wanted to kind of give to people who are looking for really specific takeaways and things that they can implement today. The first one is visual-led systems. Anything that helps you feel like your brain is out on the page. You're able to see what is going on. If you're able to feel in control of everything, that visual-led system can make such a difference. If you struggle with remembering things, how is your reminder system going to be as visual as possible? If you feel like you're getting behind on all your tasks, how can your overview of what you need to be doing be as visual as possible so you can see red is there, amber is there, green is there? What is it that you're doing to be able to give you that snapshot that your brain loves so much? The other thing we talked a little bit about is the practical ways of working. So when someone is explaining something, running through it, sitting there with you rather than explaining it and you just kind of like process the information like, yeah, I understand. So sitting step by step and running through something, providing examples of something, giving context to something, anything that can start utilizing that multisensory learning can be really, really useful. So someone explains something and you write it down at the same time. These kind of things are so, so useful to jump into different parts of our brain and be able to create multiple hooks. That's the way I think about it, is like the information is just swimming past and your just job is to have as many fish hooks as you can to just grab that information and take it into your brain. And then we talked a little bit about the getting context and background information, because that is one that honestly helps so many people. So that's just me reiterating that. Okay, dyslexia is a strength. So we talked a little bit about the concept of bearing with. So you are doing things differently, you are processing things differently, and it's frustrating. And you're thinking to yourself, it's got challenges and I'm finding that really tough and I'm really frustrated. And I don't want to be a burden to my team and I don't want to be frustrating and I don't want to feel like embarrassed about this reality that I'm dealing with. Well, this is where we talk about the opportunities and the value that comes from the dyslexic strengths, because you are worth bearing with. So the concept of this for dyslexic people is often we feel like we're not good enough or a burden, and that can impact the stress. It can make things worse. Confidence is the #1 skill for navigating dyslexic challenges. Just one example of this I was talking about on my LinkedIn this morning is so many dyslexic people are super nervous and frustrated and worried about public speaking because they worry about the challenge of the word recall. Words coming, they come into your head and you think to yourself, oh my God, what's that word? I know it. Oh no, it's not there. And they worry about that fear of that spotlight and it coming to them, or losing their train of thought. You may not notice, but it's happened about 5 times to me during this presentation. But because I have confidence in my ability to just skip over that moment, move on, I know the word will come to me. I know I will remember my train of thought. I know I'm a good public speaker, that it's okay. I'm not stressed about it. I have confidence in my ability to do the public speaking. And so I focus on the things that I'm good at, which is telling stories and connecting with people, rather than worrying about the challenges of the word recall. And then again, if you're a manager and you're thinking, yeah, but like this sounds like a lot of work, the reality is that dyslexia challenges through assistive technology are more and more being taken away, and they're leaving us with the key strengths of the 21st century in our workforce. There has been so many amazing studies and work done that identifies the exact things that we're looking for in a 21st century workforce is exactly what dyslexic strengths have in buckets. So supporting dyslexic employees will both help through like identifying their strengths and helping them feel like they are worth bearing with, will really help not only help them better navigate their challenges, but will also unlock their opportunities. Okay, this is one of my favorite things to talk about. I've kind of hinted it a little bit throughout the presentation. The general theory is dyslexic people are really bad at low value tasks, but really great at high value tasks. That's what I really encourage my clients and for you to think about with some dyslexic strengths. The thing that you should know about me is I'm not a fan of the superpower term. It just doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't feel like it fits with me as a 31-year-old woman. Like, I don't personally like it. If you love it, you want to use it, great. It's not for me, and it's not for a lot of my clients. So many people say to me, I wanted to work with you because you said dyslexia is not a superpower. And I was like, not if you don't want to call it, but we do have to know what the strengths are. So, and I'm going to talk a little bit about superpower in a minute as well. So when we're trying to think about dyslexic strengths, if you're dyslexic yourself, you'll probably get this. You've been mired in the challenges for I don't even know how long, and you are focused on how frustrated they are. And you're thinking to yourself, oh, I don't really have any dyslexic strengths. And that's for other people. That's for entrepreneurs. That's for actors. That's for people who have gazillions of money. That's not for me. Not if I'm a nurse or a teacher or in marketing. Like, oh, I don't really know what these dyslexic strengths are. Or I cannot tell you how many dyslexic project managers I know. There are so many. There's so many strengths associated with it. Whatever the job, I promise you, dyslexic strengths are there. So dyslexic people are good at high value tasks and good at low value tasks. What the hell does that mean? And how can it help you understand strengths better? So, like I said, the thing is I see dyslexic people quite obsessed by their challenges. And so that stops our ability to really see and understand our strengths. And so the way I'd like to explain it to my clients and think about it is ultimately the things that we struggle with, they do have to be done. They are important. And if they don't get done properly, it is really frustrating. It's embarrassing when you spell something wrong. It's embarrassing if you attach the wrong email. It's embarrassing if it takes you a little bit longer to process something, or maybe you forget your train of thought. But ultimately, they're low value. It doesn't change a business. It doesn't help someone understand something. It doesn't build a connection with something. It doesn't solve a problem when there's something going wrong in like the new system you're implementing or whatever. They're just things that have to be done that are ultimately low value. But what dyslexic strengths are is high value tasks. They're being able to persuade someone of something because of the way you explained it. They're being able to identify a problem or a solution that people haven't thought of before. It's being able to synthesize and explain something simply and easily. It's being able to see every stage of a process because you're able to utilize that big picture thinking and realize like, okay, we're working on stage 2, but actually we need to do stage 6 first. It makes no sense, but this is where we got to start. And then we work back and then we go to 4 and then we go to 2. It makes total sense in my brain because you can see that overarching thing. So the thing with dyslexic strengths is they're the high value tasks. They're the things that create change. They're the things that build innovation. They're the things that help you sign a new client, change the marketing strategy, help someone understand something for the first time. That is the idea of how to think about dyslexia. So when we're thinking about understanding dyslexic strengths, what are some of the general buckets that we want to think about? Well, it's being image-centric, which both comes from how to navigate the challenges, but also the opportunities and the strength, which means that we are strong communicators, or we are able to have the ability to be highly creative and think about things or put things together in our mind, or that 3D thinking of being able to move things around and twist things around, which makes dyslexic people amazing engineers. And then the thing that I've kind of banged on a lot about today, which is the thing I'm really passionate about, It's the unique thinking. It's that big picture and being able to have an overview of everything, or be able to notice patterns as well. That one's my favorite. So you might have a conversation with someone over there and a conversation with someone over there, and then a conversation at home, and you're like, oh my God, it's just dropped into my brain. Like it's just fallen out of the universe. It's like this. The interconnections make so much sense. It's that ability to think differently or see things differently. So I could sit there and explain all of that to many dyslexic people, and they would go, no, I don't have any dyslexic strengths, I only have challenges. Or maybe you're sitting there thinking, oh, I'm trying to think about how this might be the case for my employee, and it's not quite clicking. So some of the things I like to talk about is the compliments that you will often hear if you're dyslexic, or maybe you will think about with your employee that will highlight where their dyslexic strengths might be showing up specifically. So we're talking about unique thinking, right? So that might be, oh, I never would have thought of it like that. Or now you say that, that makes so much sense. Or when we're thinking about that big picture piece and being able to see all the elements of something, oh my God, great spot. I didn't see that. You're so right. Or the fact that we talk about the lived experience of dyslexia and the fact that we're super hardworking and really resilient and really, really care about doing a good job. Oh, you're always so over-prepared. Like you've always prepped things so much. Like you really are the one that comes into the meeting who knows everything, because once it's inside, once we understand things, the things we're able to do are so impressive. So these are some of the compliments that, or comments you might hear if you're both managing a dyslexic person or if you're dyslexic yourself. So also just touching on the superpower thing, like I said, not my favorite topic. Sometimes I feel like it can be quite an alienating term, particularly if you're struggling or feeling frustrated, because the problem with superpower is that we put the bar right up here. It's like, oh, it's a superpower, it's a gift. It's like, oh my God, it's so amazing. It's right up here. And maybe you're struggling, but also maybe you're just a person going about their normal day, like that, you know, you aren't an entrepreneur, or you haven't brought out this new product that's changed the world. You're just living your life, and maybe you struggle to see how these superpowers connect with that. And one of the examples I like to give that is with regards to problem solving. And so what that means is, so often dyslexic people think of problem solving when we talk about that as a strength, and they don't really see it in themselves. And they think to themselves, oh, like, no, I'm not really good at problem solving. I don't really know what you mean. And the problem with it is that they think that that problem solving as a dyslexic strength means that they have these gold-plated ideas, that they are genius with everything. And the way that I like to kind of break down that myth is, if dyslexic people had gold-plated problem solving, if we were able to come up with the best ideas, life-changing, there would be world peace. There would be no world hunger. There would be no climate change, because we would have solved it all. Because there's at a conservative estimate, 10% of people, maybe even 20% of people are dyslexic. So we would have solved every problem ever. It's not really like that. It's not quite what we're looking for when we think of dyslexic strengths. What we're actually helping dyslexic people think of is when someone comes to you and they say, oh, we've got this problem, or this thing has happened, you're like, oh, okay, interesting. Well, I guess we could do this, or actually, maybe we could do that, or what could work really well is that. Thinking about it, option A doesn't quite make sense because the client said they want this, this, and this, or option B could work, but we'd have to also do this as well, because that might have a problem. Or option C makes sense, but I think it'll be too slow or complicated. I think we should go for option B. It's the ability you find of coming up with 5 ideas on the spot, quickly, easily, and then the ability to assess them and think about all the ramifications that could come with that. That's the reality of what dyslexic problem solving looks like. It's the ease of which we do it, not necessarily always this bar of having gold-plated ideas. And the reason why I wanted to kind of talk about that and highlight that is sometimes as dyslexic people, we feel fearful of speaking up or saying things or connecting with these strengths because the bar is too high. And if we don't better understand what is going on in our brain, then we can't feel like we're worth bearing with, or we can't focus on the right tasks and take on the right opportunities because they're so busy struggling and frustrated. So helping you thrive is helping you understand your strengths, because successful dyslexics, and trust me, I've spoken to a lot of them, they overlap what they're good at with what a company is looking for. And when you can create that overlap, your challenges just disappear and they start to feel so small and so minor and so inconsequential, because you're focused on your high value task, what you can do over here, what you're really good at. Okay, end scene, I'm done. So the key takeaways I wanted you to have today is that dyslexia is about understanding and accepting the reality of your difference. And that means focusing on the difference when it comes to both your challenges and your strengths. So I'm Natalie, and I'm the founder of Dyslexia in Adults. And if you found this interesting and you want to learn more about what I think and how I approach things, I'm everywhere. You can find me anywhere. Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. I also have a podcast, and we also send out a weekly email. And pretty much everything is under Dyslexia in Adults, so nice and easy to find. I didn't put a lot of thought into my marketing name, but it's worked out for me. Okay, Rich, I am done. Feel free to jump into the Q&A, although not that I left a lot of time.
That was amazing. Thank you.
Very
thank you so much. How good was that, everyone? That was fantastic. And yeah, I mean, you'll be able to have a scroll through the chat and you'll see how many people, what you said resonated with so many people. And I think that's been the nicest thing about these events, is people saying, oh yeah, that is my experience, and such a good way of thinking about it. So certainly resonated a lot with me. We don't have too long for questions. If anybody has any questions, throw them into the Q&A section, and we'll try and pick them up. And we can always, if we haven't got time, we can always get back to them afterwards. We did this last time. We had lots and lots of questions, and we answered them, some of them afterwards as well. So Danny's asked, for working with a remote workforce, what tools do you recommend to support a more visual way of communicating? Summarizing with written actions and minutes coupled with dictation software helps, but if you need to bring something to life visually in conversation, I figure some more clever tech could assist.
Yes. Oh, do you want to go, Richard?
Fire away.
So I also run a membership, and one of the amazing things is I learned so much from my membership, and we were actually talking about this exact topic last week. And one of the things, I haven't personally used it myself, but the membership were raving about it, is Miro, which is like a kind of whiteboard where you can like share ideas and put things in much more of a visual state. But there's also loads of amazing kind of tech in terms of like keeping on top of tasks and things like that, so that my employee and I rave about as well. So that would probably be my first answer.
We use Miro as well. It's fantastic. I know.
Oh, good. Okay.
And like before that, it used to be big A1 sheets on the wall and drawing all over, and it's great. Absolutely. And yeah, I think Ellie from our team's also messaging, because we're in the assistive tech field, so we can certainly point out different tools to you. And yeah, Danny, you've got the link there, because some people were asking about how we spell it and things. So it's Miro. The link to it is there. There's a question here. Do you provide any sort of support group for dyslexic adults?
Yes, so I have a membership that people can join if they want advice and support on navigating the challenges, but also to connect with like-minded dyslexic people, so you realize you aren't alone, you aren't weird, you're just different, and it's cool.
Oh, fantastic. Brilliant. Keep the questions coming as you can. I'm just gonna just before people take off, I just want to say a massive thank you to Natalie for that brilliant talk. As I say, like so much great feedback coming in. That's fantastic, and for all the great work that you're doing. And thank you as well. We don't say enough to Lucy, Laura, and Claire, who are on the line, who help to arrange these events every month, and even the in-person events. And hopefully I can see that lots of people are getting great value from them. So yeah, thank you for all your hard work arranging these.
Definitely thank you to Lucy and Laura.
I know, right? It's like it's such a well-oiled machine. It's amazing. And lots and lots of hard work's gone into this. So yeah, well done, guys. And there's a survey link that's going to be sent out for you. So please feed please fill it out, because these are kind of free events that we put on to try and nurture this community and basically share information. So if you find it valuable, tell us what you want to hear about, tell us what you want to talk about, different speakers you might want us to ask to come along, different topics. Just feedback, because it's really, really valuable and allows us to hone this into the most useful thing it can be. Lots and lots of questions about recordings. We are going to send them out very soon, so you'll be getting a recording and a transcript within the next day. So if you missed anything or want to go through it or share it, then please do. And then just a reminder, next month's webinar is the first Thursday of the month. And it is we're going to be joined by Neurobox, who are an amazing company that support lots and lots of people across the country, and they're going to be joining us on the 7th of November. No, they're not. They're going to be joining us for our next online event, and then we also have an in-person event on the 7th of November, which is based in London, and that one is going to be focused on ADHD. But we'll get you all these details out via email, so you don't need to remember too much. But we're bang on time at 2 o'clock. So yes, thank you everybody for coming, hopefully we'll see you at the next one. Again, a big thank you to Natalie for everything you do and for that amazing talk. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.